Server restart in 3, 2, 1.
All right, welcome back to Server Restart In. It's a World of Warcraft podcast with three opinionated players who like to get together to discuss their thoughts and ideas about the current state of the game. My name is Jim. I'm joined by Kristen.
Hi.
And Brian.
Hello.
And this week, we're going to try and do something that we should have done last week, and that's record what we actually think about things. We decided to keep talking after we recorded last week and had just a bunch of shit to say, and then said, well, should have kept recording.
I don't remember any of it. I'll be honest.
I think
I'm hurting.
we were probably talking about the loot systems. So I'm pretty sure I was talking about how I don't feel the gearing scaling from Mythic Pluses is a good thing. Whereas, like they go up in increments of like 3 or 4 item levels per key as you go up. I feel that they should be on par with the raid levels. So you should have a normal, heroic, and a mythic. Maybe, and like leave mythic zeros to be like raid finder tier or whatever. So I think it actually is, or it's a little bit higher. But instead of starting at like the rewards that you get being like 200, 207, 213, 216, whatever that stuff is, right? Having it be bracketed, whereas, it doesn't matter which ones you do, you're going to get a certain piece out of the thing. And only because it just creates this huge disparity between between rating and Mythic Plus, and it makes Mythic Plus be a better means of gearing up. I think actually PvP is probably one of the better ones right now. But I think PvP, so
I think it's just because it's more, you can get more from it. It's not necessarily
How so?
more loot from probably the not the honor levels, but the conquest levels or something like that.
Oh, okay.
So like there's more chances, and you can spin it up.
Oh, I
pretty
guess
fast.
you can upgrade it too, right?
Well, the upgrade stuff's coming out. Actually, that's
No, I think that
It's been
the PvP
Oh,
stuff has been
okay.
upgradable like right off the bat. Yeah.
well. I don't think PvP gear really has a specific PvP stat on it, right? It just probably has more like versatility or something like that on it.
I don't actually
I'm
know.
not sure, but I would imagine so.
But so like the only downside to PvP gear is that the stats is the word I'm looking for, may not be the best optimized for PvE content, but as long as the item level is up there and the main stats are up there, some of those secondary stats can be, not as bad to have. So it just
Well, that was the whole point of like them reweighting, all the item levels so that the weight of the item level is more relevant within a smaller range. Whereas before, especially in like N'Zoth content, right, where we were, wearing what, I
well,
don't even remember the item level numbers, but
you had
like
a blue set of boots that had the right corruption on it, that were like your best, that were going to be like your end game boots.
Yeah,
because
and that's kind of like it's kind of an outlier compared to what it used to be like, but they also used to be a lot more
well, I mean,
not well distributed.
well, I just remember
weight-wise.
like Kristen just having rings that were just so low because of the stats, and she couldn't get upgrades
Yeah.
to.
Well, that's a problem with not having main stats on the jewelry, which I still don't like. I think that your jewelry should have main stats on it because then it enables you to not hoard those stupid rings. And those Mechagon rings were I had them the entire freaking from Mechagon when it launched on. Like I did not take those off until till like Shadowlands came, you know? Like it was ridiculous.
In my opinion, I think they should completely get rid of stat stick type items.
Oh.
Like rings and stuff. I think it should be more like interesting temporary use type things like they kind of was in vanilla.
Like not procs, but on use stuff.
Yeah, but not to the point where you could really calculate it into a rotation.
Right.
It was more like, yeah, it was just like a trinket should be like an actual trinket. You know what I mean? Like something that just.
So it's kind of like a happy accident when it happens, right? And it's not anything you can take into account. It's just like, oh, this is a little bit more extra damage for me, or a little bit more extra healing, or a little bit more extra tankiness.
Yeah,
but it's not
when the moon's out, I can do this thing every so often or something.
Right.
Yeah, they would have to completely remove any type of stats from it, and probably really make the odds of it happening be. See, but you can't make it so low that it rarely happens, but you also can't make it so high that it's predictable.
Yeah,
that's a hard thing.
The basic thing, it should just not be ever predictable.
Or you give it something that's just like a huge amount of damage.
And it doesn't have to be like it doesn't have to be damage though, right? I mean, like, what's the point in having items that you can't see on your character? You know, what's the point in having stats on something like that?
Yeah, like you play Tauren, and what's the point of having shoes?
Let me tell you, I would love it if they made the stuff visible on our characters. Oh man, if I had a big old Flava Flav clock necklace, yes please.
Oh my god!
On my character.
And everybody's like, "What's the time? What's the time?"
I mean,
come on, what's the time?
I don't know what you're doing.
Time to get ill.
I thought you might have been going there with it, but I was not sure if you
brought it up.
You said I said Flava Flav. That's not Flava Flav. That's Beastie Boys.
What?
Yes.
No.
What's time? It's time to get ill. Yeah. Yes, that's what it is. Yes, it's not Flava Flav. That's Beastie Boys.
Well.
Yeah.
I don't listen.
You are gonna have to cut that out, by the way.
No. That's an organic conversation.
God damn it!
But,
nobody needs to hear me doing my poor excuse at rapping. Jesus.
Anyway,
but no, I thought like I always thought that something neat would be like, you know, you collected this tooth thing or something, trinket type thing from some boss, and it can hang off your weapon, or
like a charm.
Yeah, stuff like that. You know, it doesn't really. I don't know. It could add a lot more flavor into the game. Like maybe enchants, like the way enchants work, it would make something the appearance wise change. You know, stuff like that.
Yeah, it would be nice to have a way to customize your armor to, you know, like what I mean, like color it.
God, yeah.
Ion had that, right, where you could paint your armor different colors.
I mean, you
every
can dye
every
it in
other
Final
MMO
Fantasy
in the world
too.
has had that.
Yeah, you can dye your armor in Final Fantasy too, and it's really pretty robust.
So I mean, it's
both Ultima and EverQuest had that.
Yeah.
So it's like the armor looks the same, but the colors are different, and so you still get a little bit of uniqueness to it. It'd be nice to see them put that in. Hey, that would be neat. But I do agree though too that things that aren't visible may not necessarily be as crucial, right? So like I get all the main armor pieces, I get the weapons, I get the back, the necklace. Sure, you could maybe put like a little necklace on a character or whatever, but like trinkets and rings, it's like, yeah, I mean you can get rid of them or revamp them or whatever, because
Yeah, like a ring is very much. I think it's very much a part of the fantasy role play system. So I'd hate for something like that to disappear, but I think they could do more with it. Like they don't have to make it disappear. More, in my opinion, I think that it should be just stuff that's not. They're not stat sticks. Like take the damn stats off of it and just do something interesting with them, so that you still you still want to collect them, but you're not hindered by it. And they could easily mold those stats into regular standard items and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's the gear. I don't know. I think the gear distribution systems, I don't know. I just feel like I'm not getting anything out of rating right now, because since we're working on progression, we're not constantly clearing or downing bosses and all that stuff, which last week was pretty damn amazing. We got to Denathrius after we killed the Council of Blood, which was the first for us, and then we killed Sludge Fist. I think it only took like 1 or 2 pulls, and then the Stone Generals we one-shot, and then it was Denathrius, and it was just like, the fuck just happened?
Yeah, that was really surprising. That was nice. That was a nice surprise.
Yeah, so that's where we're gonna be working on this week, extending it and just working on it so that we can see it, and then, but that like limits like the loot you can get, and we're not really doing dungeons right now, not really doing much of anything right now.
Although 905 comes out on Tuesday,
Yeah.
then
Does that come out on Tuesday?
Well, I mean, then yeah, people might come back to play a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily mean we're gonna be doing dungeons.
yeah. No, I mean, like I said last week, I think it'd be nice to go back and start doing mythics again, kind of on a semi-schedule, but I hope it's more exciting than it reads to be. So,
I mean, it's just grinding another currency to upgrade stuff that if you haven't met the requirements, you're not going to get to do much of it anyway.
right.
Because I don't know if I've timed all of them at a 5, because I don't think I've done them all that way. You know what I mean? Like, we never went through and, like, pushed each one up, because I don't think that really... I think that's a strategy that people that are trying to boost their, like, Raider IO score do, is they try to get each one of them to a certain level, because that boosts their points for, the highest completed and all that stuff, and it affects their score. But we don't do that, and so some of those upgrade things are going to be locked behind completing like all 5s under time, all 10s under time, all 15s under time to get all that upgrade stuff available. And does that mean that there's going to be a lot of people trying to push for that? Possibly, but I don't know.
Be something else to work towards. I mean, as a small little group, so it's not too bad.
You got to get a small little group though.
It's true.
But yeah, so I think we were last week when we were talking about this stuff, we were talking about the loot system stuff, right? And about how I don't know if we
Oh yeah, didn't we talking about? Oh, I mentioned something about we should all come up with our own personal solutions, like how we would address loot overall in World of Warcraft. Not necessarily solving a current problem, but more so solving. I guess it's a long-term problem.
The problem in general.
Yeah, and it's not to say it's a problem, but like in my mind, I think I might be able to do it better. I know I'm wrong, but
Well,
something like that,
Well, then what do you got?
Well, I didn't formally put anything together.
Yeah. I didn't either, but I just thought, what if, I think we've talked about this too in the past, but what if instead of you get a piece of gear, what if that's not how it worked, right? What if it was you got scraps of gear kind of thing, like pieces of it that you had to collect? And we talked about this too. It'd be a way to invigorate professions, right? So you have to get so much stuff and then get a blacksmith to make it, and you would build your armor and your weapons from materials you collected, and like obviously raid bosses would drop raid level stuff or stuff to make gear at raid level. Don't make it so that it's bound by getting a recipe drop or anything like that. Maybe make it so that the professions that you can kind of like what they did with the legendary stuff. The more you craft it, the more knowledge you get, the better you can craft something. Something along those lines. Not quite as simplistic as that and as fucking obnoxious as it is. But do something like that where you can get people to be engaged with the crafter and get the crafting community built back up, give something to work towards, and just make it so that you're going out to do raids to farm that stuff, but not just raids, right? Maybe make some higher level content that's available either in the world or through the dungeon or whatever, but it just gives less, or it's different, and maybe it just gives you slightly different bonuses based on the content it came from. Maybe a dungeon level style armor piece or whatever would grant you a benefit in when you're in a group of 5, whereas a raid stuff would give you stuff that's when you're in a raid group, and you get a little bonus for that. I don't know.
It would be interesting. It's funny because you talk about the crafting stuff, and I really want to go. I want armor. I want World of Warcraft to be the game it is without the never-ending gear grind replacement system that pretty much makes up all of World of Warcraft. Because in my mind, I think that if armor could be more throwaway, a lot more throwaway than it is right now. It's not throwaway at all. It's just replaceable type stuff, but pretty much you just put on your armor and go do things. I feel like that would be a much more interesting system rather than having this 4-tier armor type system that only applies to certain classes and all that stuff. I don't know. I think that there could be a lot of stuff done there from the World of Warcraft perspective, but at the same time, I'd really just like to see a game that's World of Warcraft without the I don't even know what you call it. I want to call it something like the Diablo style of collecting and replacing loot, but it's nowhere near that fast, I don't guess.
Yeah, Diablo is just once you get up there, I mean, you're getting stuff at that level, and it's just is this good? Nope, scrap it. If not, put it on.
I think the biggest thing for me, you get into the raid and you do all that work, and they put all the work into the aesthetic, everything, the mechanics, tuning, all that stuff, right? And then we talked about this last week or the week before, I don't remember, but personal loot just doesn't give that sense of we beat this boss and now we're
Let's
taking
divvy
its
up the
goodies.
spoils. Yeah. Well, it's just yeah, the gold is just negligible at this point because there's so many different ways to get gold. Anima, whatever. But yeah, it's just even if it was just even if they just drop more stuff, right? Like, greens or crafting materials. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
gems and stuff. Yeah,
like uncut gems or something like that. Or something that just cool transmogs. Like when they started doing in Legion, what was the maiden fight in the pit, in the tomb, and she dropped that blue hammer.
Oh yeah.
The corrupted hammer thing.
Yeah, and Agrimar and
Well, yeah, Tashalak is another one. The scythe thing.
Yep.
Yeah, well, was that an actual weapon or is it just a transmog?
Transmog.
Okay. Yeah, like stuff like that, right? Where it's like they're not. You could use them or whatever, but they're not going to be like raid quality items. Really, the only reason to get it was to get the transmog. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
But they were also iconic things that character was using. Like Agrimar was using Tashalak. That maiden chick was using the hammer. The scythe from Argus. You know what I mean? It's just
Mhm.
like stuff like that. And it doesn't even have to be iconic things like that too. It can just be anything. It could be, when you're fighting Shriekwing, it could just be, like you could get a bag that's just like a shriveled gnome body or something like that, or a drudger body like that was fed to him and he drained blood and it's like drudger skin, drudger hide bag, whatever, and it's like the icon or whatever. It's just got like the face of a drudger, like kind of thing on it, and just like flavor things for the boss, like the huntsman. It's like, yeah, I guess the neck was pretty neat, where you can control animals, and for a short time you could control druids.
But it was a fucking item, though.
Right, it was. But like, if they were to do something like, that's a good place to put a pet in, right? It's like one of the hound pups or something like that. That was in there. Like that would be cool. Or just like a transmog of a weapon that's like a gnawed femur that he fed the dogs, kind of thing.
Did you guys ever mention this, or I might have been thinking of? I feel like I watched so many different Twitch podcast-y channels for Warcraft.
What's Twitch?
So, right. So, Hearthstone cards. That was something. I swear, I think somebody's mentioned this before. So it's not like it's my idea. I don't think, but having Hearthstone cards in World of Warcraft, considering that most of the content in that game comes from World of Warcraft.
So you're talking about kind of like in the trading card game, you could get a card that would turn into a Warcraft item, getting a Warcraft item that would turn into a Hearthstone card.
Yeah, something like that.
Even if it was just like a card back, or something like that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, that's okay for the people who play Hearthstone, but
right, and that wouldn't just end up being like the only thing they
Right.
But
do.
This would be something that would just drop
tie
with
them in
like
together.
a ton of crap on a boss type of
Right.
thing.
Yeah, I mean, like some of these bosses should have fucking hordes of shit, right?
Yeah. Well, so the interesting thing is like there was once upon a time there was a reverse engineered server for Ultima Online, which is pretty much private server stuff, and looking through some of the way that they implemented that code was that they always had base loot packs. So basically, like, this is the like basic loot that could be dropped within a certain little range, right? And then from there, it's stacked on top of each other. So what that meant was like, if the basic loot pack came with a little bit of gold, chance for, some reagent, and that was it. That would be combined with the next level. Like, so if you had this one and it inherited the base one, then it would stack on top of that. Like, they should have something like that in this game, so that if they come out and say, hey, there's a chance for this card back or something, Hearthstone-y thing, or even a toy, has a chance to just drop, and that is inherited across all those loot tables, so to speak, then that's just, it's not like it's just for one boss type of thing. Like you just have to go kill that boss to get it.
But
It just means that. Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead. Keep going.
No, I was just saying, it just means that like whenever you set up this type of system, where when the boss dies, and just let's assume that personal loot turns back into the ability to be able to see all the loot that drops from the boss, then you have this rows and rows of shit that you're looting from the boss and divvying out type of thing. I don't know why that feels so important, but for me, I think it's just that feeling of you go in, you accomplish this thing, and we get to see the fruits of our labor or the spoils of war
the fruit of the
type
loom.
of thing. Yeah.
I think it kind of sucks because the loot rewards don't feel as rewarding on like normal and stuff like that. Because people are like, oh, normal's easy, and you know, blah blah blah. You know, all like the people who do mythic, and you know, oh, normal's easy, blah blah blah. It's not even raiding. But I mean, for some people, normal isn't easy. You know, it's I don't know. I guess it's frustrating because it's like the rewards don't feel, you know.
Definitely. Well, I think we hit it. I think we nailed it last time we actually talked about this because,
Is this the time we recorded it or didn't?
Oh, I don't know if we did or not, but yeah, the level of loot for the raid should just always be higher than the, you know,
Yeah.
more minimal effort mythic dungeons.
Well,
Yeah.
and that's the thing too. That's what I think we were talking about, you know, off the air, I guess you could call it, last week, was that low-level mythic keys are, I don't feel as difficult as, you know, normal raiding with with a bigger group. Now, because
okay, so pause for a second. Do you remember when we ran I think it was a heroic for the first time, and everybody was like, I think we were still under the bar of what normal wanted.
Yeah. We just went into heroic.
wait, which
It might
raid?
have been normal. I don't remember
Which raid?
But, no. It was a dungeon when we in Shadowlands.
Yeah, when we first started, we just
yeah.
went right in to heroic. We didn't even do
That
normals.
difficulty right there was solely based on stats.
Yeah.
And that was very rewarding to get through that like that.
Yeah. It was.
Well, that's I think what they do with Mythic Pluses. It's not. I mean, there's. Okay.
I don't think so.
No,
I don't think so at all.
The affixes throw the skill in, but the health of the stuff with the mobs and the bosses and the damage they do, are more related to stats.
I think they should take a page from the Mythic tournament and kind of normalize the gear. And I mean, they don't normalize the gear in the tournament, but they make the gear available to everybody. Like what you go in and you just pick your gear. You don't.
Well, this is kind of like what we were talking about with Torghast all that time ago. You go in and you do like a paper doll type thing where you go in and you get a basic set of armor, and then you can maybe, you know, upgrade a few pieces or something like that with some starting currency, like in Torghast. And as you go through, you could do that, but you could do something like that too with Mythic Keys. It's like if you time a key, then it should unlock the next tier, and then maybe you don't unlock the tiers until you've done all the dungeons at that level, just to kind of slow it down, because otherwise you can get lucky and push, but like as you go in, you just get an equivalent base level gear set, and then, you know, everybody has the same gear, but then you start getting into it's going to be certain comps are going to be the only things that are going to be used because neutralize some of the stuff.
Yeah, well, that's what I mean, though, about, like, not to Final Fantasy again, but Final Fantasy normalizes your gear, so you're scaled to a certain point, a certain gear level, and, like, I think it's, like, the Ultimates or the Unreals or something like that. They push you, and they're, like, they have all these crazy mechanics and all this crazy stuff, and then they sink you down to a low item level. So you can't make it through on your gear alone. You're, now, sure, secondary stats, you still have secondary stats in there. I think they disable the extra bonuses and stuff that you get, but it would be nice if WoW, like, if Mythic Pluses were like that, and they're like, okay, well, this is the item level that we think that it should be done at, and then everybody gets synced to that item level, and then it's just based on skill. Either you can do it at that item level or you can't.
Right.
It's based on skill.
Yeah, I think
not
that
based
would
on
be
varying
good.
degrees of gear.
I think that you'd have to find a decent way to gate progression on that, to the point where maybe not complete all of them, but at least complete X number of dungeons at that level before you can advance to the next one.
I mean, some people are not going to be able to complete those dungeons even with the gear.
Maybe don't make it specific dungeons, like individual ones, but just a number of dungeons. Like, do 5 dungeons at at a +3, and then you can start doing +4s, kind of thing. But
I think that they should just delete Mythic Plus dungeons.
I do too.
And possibly Mythic dungeons as well. And maybe even Heroic dungeons.
and just make hard dungeons.
And just make dungeons. And maybe you have 20 bosses in a dungeon. And
Ooh,
and
you
don't
save it.
And you don't have to go do all of it. Or
saving
you know what
them
I mean?
would be okay. I would be okay.
But it's not linear. Like, let's do one that's not linear. Let's do one that, like,
right.
you have to do something,
Well,
or you have to go kill a thing to obtain the key to get to a wing over here, or you got to crawl. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Yeah. Gosh,
Make
can
it like
we
a
just all get
dungeon-
hired to be designers?
Like
for
a
their
dungeon,
dungeons?
like
I
a
mean-
dungeon crawler or something, where you can save
Just
your
something
progress and be
completely
like,
freaking different, man.
and like have waypoints or something.
Like, in terms of like item levels, dropping from bosses, stop making everything the same damn item level, right? Like,
Make some bosses give better stuff.
well, not necessarily always that, but like have a chance to drop, the next, tier or increment up.
You mean
Oh,
Titan Forging?
On the
War
boss as well.
forging? No,
Not
God,
necessarily
no.
like that. Like, not a calculated one.
I mean,
Like,
It would have to be.
it would, yeah.
You can't make it.
You're like, the stuff that you're talking about is literally like calculating item level and then increasing that item based on that. I'm talking about like having actual items, such as you would have a normal heroic and a mythic with the same, which is kind of the same thing.
You mean
right?
like just have
But,
them with a really
but
low
those
drop
items
rate?
are static versus war forging and all that shit was dynamic.
So is it just like having like basically like Lich King has a chance to drop invincible, and it's just something like that?
essentially,
where
yeah,
it's a super rare drop that could potentially be kind of like.
But don't let that idea deter you from the thought of having this massive dungeon that is non-linear, because that was the better part of the idea.
And I do, and I like that idea, and I think it would be a winner if they allowed you to save your progress in dungeons, and you know what I mean?
Or at
Yeah, I
least
think
these
so too.
type,
And
at least
I think in
these
that type of
dungeons.
world, they would have to completely get rid of the way that they reset dungeons and stuff like that.
Well, the question would be is how big do you make it, and when do you do a reset on it? Right? You could
Say once a week,
you could do once a week,
like
but
a raid.
But a raid only has 10 bosses. If you're doing like a 20 boss dungeon, is it a 2-week lockout? Is it a month lockout? Just that kind of.
I mean, I think the week lockout's fine, and I think
Yeah.
their saving feature is a great.
You could extend
thing as
And
it.
well,
I
so.
mean, you could extend it, absolutely.
Yeah, like
Or like Brian was saying, you don't have to do all the bosses.
Right. Well, it's just like,
You know?
because there was,
Do not add something that makes people finish dungeons.
Yeah.
Get rid of that.
Get rid of that.
Get rid of that
Yeah.
completely.
yeah, if the boss doesn't have anything that anybody wants, you just don't ever do it. It's just you're just going in on farm, and you could mix elements of Torghast into that.
You know.
And
Sorry. Keep going.
I was gonna say, Torghast.
Don't lose your though.
I know.
Those are the best ones.
I know.
Keep thinking it. Where the dungeons change every lockout, and it's not necessarily the same dungeon and the same bosses every time, but it's just like 1 week it's a bandit cave, the next week it is a troll fortress, and then another week it's just themed stuff like that, and options too, maybe, or options. I don't know.
I mean, I like the idea of having multiple ones. What I was gonna say is, what if the bosses didn't drop static loot pools? The dungeon dropped a static loot pool, then the bosses all pulled from those pools.
Well,
so
that's what Brian was talking about earlier.
did I miss that?
Were you listening?
I was, but I might have missed it.
Where he was talking about you build up your loot pools, so you have base loot pool, and then you have additional ones for the content.
That's not what I was talking about. I'm talking about the dungeon itself has a normal dungeon has a.
But this is similar to that.
But the bosses.
Kind of yes and no. I get what she's saying.
They just switch
because you could get like the end item
from the first boss.
A mob, right? Just a regular mob.
Oh no, I'm not talking about the mobs. I'm talking about like bosses.
Well, no, the bosses are on a boss tier, and they would only have stuff up to.
No, the bosses in the dungeon all have. Any one of them could drop any of the items on that loot table in the dungeon. So. It's different every time. So you go in and you're not just going to this one to farm this item every time. Now
I was actually going to say that when you
said
something about that earlier, and I thought like just completely get rid of the idea of having certain loot.
Yes.
It's kind of like the dragons used to be.
Yeah.
The world boss dragons.
Yeah. It shares a loot table, the whole dungeon itself, and so, say maybe you do get that item from the first boss. Well, okay, it takes it off of the loot table
and then
now.
It drops from the other 20 bosses.
No. It takes it off of the loot table at that point. You know what I mean?
So it would be a dungeon level loot table that bosses pull from when they die.
Yeah.
So you don't know which boss is going to have what.
Yes.
And the loot table could change based on what zone it is. If you had like if we went back to it being different, like obviously it would be like troll themed stuff. It was like a troll dungeon, or bandit themed stuff. It was a bandit cave,
right?
Or if it was like Mechagon, Operation Mechagon, right? Something like that. But it was all Mechagon themed stuff, and Mechagon is a huge city, right? So what if like the whole Torghast aspect? The next time that was in the rotation, or you went there, and maybe you just put a whole bunch of them in different areas so you can pick which ones you go through, and they all have the same level of gear that's as good as, doesn't matter which one you do, but, and they're equivalent power-wise, so like you could get a bandit sword or a, electric vibro cleaver from the two different ones, but they're essentially the same thing, maybe with like minor tweaks here and there for like flavor stuff, but one is obviously a mechanical thing, the other one is like a rusted cutlass type
so it's
thing.
just the skin difference.
I would say yes and
with
no.
Some flavor differences, I would think.
Sure.
Maybe an effect, or like a little bit of a bonus to like a bandit gear. I don't know, some sort of like a pirate bonus or something like that. Like when you fight other bandit mobs and they see that you have this, like it has a chance to
you
cause
automatically scream "yar" all the time.
Well-
yar, yar.
They it has a chance to have them fight for you for a couple of
it
seconds.
has
or
a
something
chance
like
to
that,
make
or-
them flee in fear
No.
because you killed like
no.
this no
That would not be great.
random chase, not like the stupid shit in Torghast with the hematoma bat.
Maybe flee in fear as
Or
like
cower. Yeah.
Cower. I like cower because
but
when you're
something like
fleeing,
that.
you're risking pulling other things.
But like the Mechagon one or like the Mecha Gnome one would be like, adds, like 3% more damage against beasts because it's really good at carving, it's a carving knife.
right.
Just like little things like that in the long run don't really make much of a difference. But I mean, God, could you imagine that? It would be like Durnhold Keep, right? That could be one, right? Because that was kind of like that. I mean, I don't think there were enough bosses in there, but it was like a fortress, right?
Mhm.
And Operation Mechagon. It could be different paths each time, kind of like the Torghast thing, where it's like there's a whole bunch of them to do, and like everything is still available. Just how you get there is different, right?
Mhm.
Like the path to
I would even go as far to say like the rotation aspect of it should be dynamically based on something else in the game, such as like the balloon moon thingy or something like that. Like,
Whether it's
Oh my
day or
God,
night.
you could have fucking a werewolf themed dungeon where you're
for
fighting the
like
fucking worgen.
my
shit.
point more so being like if it's during the day,
Right.
something is opened up. If it's at night, something is open.
Well,
Those types of things.
their day-night
Not a
cycle is
rotational
weird.
thing because
Yeah.
if we get to the point where we have world boss rotation things again, then it's just the same shit rehashed to a certain extent.
I think a day night rotation would be really hard because of
It depends on the day-night rotation you use because in-game day-night cycles are different.
Yeah, well, I
Yeah.
mean, you know what I mean. Generally speaking, something dynamic of that nature.
right.
They could tie it back to. There's
Right.
way too many opportunities for them not to take advantage of something like that. But even still, my other part to this, would be I don't know what you would call it, but if you played Final Fantasy VII,
Yep.
in the Gold Saucer there
Yep.
was a gauntlet mode. Do you remember that?
No.
You fought a boss or a set of mobs or something, and you went through each level. So you were in this little chamber, and then you would fight them. And if you beat them, well, the next one comes out.
Okay.
Your health stays the same. You don't recycle a fight. You stay in the same state, but the next boss comes in. And if you got all the way to the end, you got, I think it was I think you got a sword or you got a materia of some sort or something like that.
So what I'm
Um,
hearing is it's a Caverns of Time hyperbolic time chamber where you
Yeah,
get
wait, no, hold that thought. You're right on it. And I'm pointing this direction because your camera's right there.
but it's right there.
So imagine that you start somewhere. Yes, Caverns of Time. You go in, and you're thrown into dead mines. And when you're done with dead mines, at the very end, when the boss dies, this bronze dragon pops a portal, and you go through it and into Hellfire Ramparts. And then again, at the end of that dungeon, you go somewhere in Warlords of Draenor, and then back to Mists, and then right. And as far as you go, wherever you end up, you get reward based on how.
Oh.
Right. So it's like it would be like Torghast should have been with the infinite levels. You go as far as you can.
Yeah, essentially.
Uh,
Now I don't know what I
Without-
don't know in my mind. I guess I don't really know what they would gradually have to get harder or something.
well,
Um,
if what you talked about is you don't reset cooldowns, and this
nope,
would be
you're
a-
assuming.
right. This is a perfect
You're-
place though to put people in at a scaled level, right? And to give them a starter pack that has potions, food.
Just normalize it. Yeah, just normalize
Right.
it and
well, like you can't stock up on the outside and bring it in, right? You go in and like
Right.
you go
yeah.
in, like we talked, like again, this is the same kind of concept with the Torghast thing as the paper doll thing, right? You get a basic set and that's what you start with. Maybe you can get something to upgrade along the way, or maybe not. I don't know. But yeah, like where everybody goes in with the same stuff, and it's just you just see how far you can push, and doing that with a random rotation of dungeon bosses, and then maybe you have a random chance to get a raid boss, which they would have to be
That would be
tuned for.
interesting.
Like if this was
Sure.
a party mode, right, where you could do, if this was like a Torghast thing, where you could do one to 5 players. Let's say you did get a raid boss. Well, then they have the way they could do like another 5-player AI team that's just in there, and it's just like you just
That would
stepped
be
into
pretty
this
cool,
fight,
actually.
and like so like they're doing stuff, and it's based on the composition of your thing. So like if you went in with a regular party and you had a tank and a healer or whatever, then like maybe there would be another tank and whatnot, or you know what I mean? Just
Yeah, something like that. Yeah, that would be kind of cool, actually. I like that idea.
Mm.
it would be really neat to do that, you know, to have something like that, because then you get to go do all the old fights. And sometimes you get the shitty bosses that you fucking hate, like
Mhm.
the goddamn dragon at the end of, was it Serpent Shrine Cavern? Or, no, Sunken Temple, right?
Oh yeah.
Oh, that one's
Oh,
annoying.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
another fucking dungeon that would have been amazing with like this kind of like, if they fleshed that out and made the temple bigger, you know what I mean? 'Cause
Well, it
that
was bigger until they freaking chopped it up and made it
Yeah.
small.
Yeah.
I remember
During
farming
Cataclysm.
that before Cataclysm. God, I'd get lost in that motherfucker trying to
Yeah.
get
Well,
up
the
and down.
dungeon took like 3 hours
It,
to run.
it took a long
It
time.
took 3 hours just to find a boss.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was ridiculous because you had to go up and down and find the fucking masks or some shit like that. I don't even fucking remember. It's been fucking ages. Can you
There's a
still
lot
go
of
do
bosses
it?
in that dungeon though.
Mm-mm.
Yeah, but like,
That's they made good dungeons back then.
Mhm.
or like
Once they got to a point where they were like cookie cutting dungeon layouts.
like Blackrock
You know what I mean?
Spires,
Yeah.
right? Because that was used to be one dungeon, and it used to be
That was,
huge.
that was the one of the Tin Mans, wasn't it?
A 10. Was it a 10-man?
Upper Blackrock Spire was a Tin Man.
It was. Yes.
What about lower?
That's
Upper and
fine.
lower were.
They were 10.
They were the raid content when it first came out. Not the raid. They were
Lower-
the end game content when it first came out.
Lower
Ubers
wasn't.
and-
Lower was 5-man.
Lower with 5-man.
I thought they were all one
Remember,
thing.
everybody always talked about Ubers.
Yes.
Ubers.
Oh yeah.
That was.
I don't
that was
remember
a
it ever being
5.
10-man, but
No, well, no, you
I'm
didn't.
sorry. Ubers was 10-man. Lower was.
Yeah, you didn't.
5-man.
You
but
didn't
like
play it back
if
then.
that was like one dungeon, you know what I
Oh,
mean?
you could still have up to 10 players in it. It said actually.
No, I don't know about that.
Well, that's what.
Maybe
it
if
says.
you go in.
Well, that
north-
was the same way with like Strat. Strat had you could have up to 10 players in Strat, but I don't think it changed any. I mean,
the call.
did it
Oh,
change in-
oh! You're talking about Dead Strat, Live Strat, the dungeon stuff. Strat home, not calling a strat.
oh
Yes.
no, hold on, no, I'm not talking about Strat.
Skullmans?
Western Plaguelands, Skullmans,
Skullmans?
yeah, that was one that was it, man.
But yeah, like I mean, they have all these locations in there. They could just take these, and they could just turn them into like these like anomalies, right? Where like it's bigger on the inside than it is on the outside, you know, like a TARDIS effect type thing. And it's just like these winding hallways or these dense like jungles.
Can you imagine though, like in with all this considered, also bring back dungeon sets. There's no
Yeah.
reason. There's no reason why we shouldn't have dungeon sets.
The only reason we don't have dungeon sets right now is because you outgear dungeons real fast.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
That's
it's
the
like the
world.
Covenant armor. The Covenant armor has suited us well going into normal raiding and stuff, right?
If
Because
you
it's
get it
more
all-
than LFR. It's more than basic
Well,
mythic.
You can get it up to 200, can't you? Or is it 194?
190.
I don't
97.
know. I've.
Yeah.
197 is the highest I got mine,
Okay. So yeah,
which is great. It actually has worked out really, really well. But the bonuses are just kind of
the bonuses don't do you any good in the raid. They're all
No.
like out in the world type shit.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the point where you have the full set to get all the bonuses, you've got better gear.
Not
Yeah.
worth it. It's not worth it. Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like
That's what I'm saying. Like, make dungeon sets should be more sets collecting, right? That's the whole part about it, right? Because I think even if you had a situation where a whole dungeon shared a loot table, yeah, so you can go in potentially get a piece that you need right off the bat, or it takes longer or something like that. But you can begin to collect those rather than a situation where your dungeon set item, if it's not tokenized, such as like vanilla, then you have to go reach the end boss to potentially get a chance to get that item, you know. But I think that like having that collection, right, and getting to that point where you're working hard to get that together, creates replayability that is just a part of an RPG, and it should be there.
Oh, absolutely. I think that I don't know. I feel like they could do a lot, and part of it is just like we said, dungeon gear and world gear and all that stuff that you get. You just outpace it so fast, and it's just even like they slowed down raid loot or whatever, but like all you have to do is just do some mythic pluses, right? And it's just like, so they tried to slow it down, and then they just
Well, think about
gave
it.
you a
Think about
different way to do it.
how many dungeons are there? There's 8, right now.
Something like that, yeah.
So that's 8 times at least 3 or 4. Let's go with 4 because there's some that have 5 bosses, right?
Right.
So 8 times 4, that's
32.
32. Yeah. So you have a chance. You have 32 chances to get what, item level 187
Yes.
a week, and then you have 8 chances. Oh no, you have almost an unlimited amount of chances to get.
Depends on how many you run.
Yeah, and it's just not like, I don't know.
I don't know. I did see in the patch notes that I believe was one thing that, and I don't know if this is really a good thing or a bad thing, but they were going to make it so that Keystone
The cap?
dungeons, no, it's going to drop. They're changing the way the keys downgrade from week to week. They're going to drop. It used to be like every 2. Like if you didn't do a dungeon 1 week and you didn't do it 2 weeks, then it would start dropping down. And it's going to start dropping down faster. Like if you don't get a key, so by the time you do get a key, it'll be like however many weeks lower than whatever it was. But I saw something about how the loot was going to change for dropping from keystones. Yeah, so it says a mythic keystone, completing one after a timer is ended is going to give you another item. So if you don't complete the key, however many, instead of just one item dropping, it's going to be 2. But it says the item level of the second item is going to be slightly lower. The example they give is a mythic 7. If you don't complete the timer, but you complete the dungeon, you're going to get a 200 eye level gear and a 197 eye level gear. So you're not getting as good a gear, but you're still getting a little bit of gear.
Are they changing the way that gear is scaling in Mythic Pluses? I thought 7 dropped higher than or is that just the vault?
No, that's the gear.
The 7 drop 200 item level gear?
Maybe. That's a good question. I don't know. I don't have the information in front of me, and I'm not gonna hazard a guess. I mean, it's not gonna change the way the Great Vault was. It's the thing at the end of the dungeon.
Yeah, no, I know. I just didn't remember what.
Well, if you figure if it starts at 187, and 7 is what, 6 up, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 times 3.
21.
If it goes up by 3, that's. I don't know. I don't know what their fucking scaling shit is. I don't care.
It was just a question. I
Or is it 184?
I think 184 is regular mythic. I believe.
Okay.
184 is LFR, isn't it?
Yeah, that's 187.
187 is regular mythic.
No.
Or is it other way?
No,
Maybe
187 I think is a +2.
I have absolutely no idea. I really don't care.
Clearly, we don't mythic plus.
It's been a while, and I never paid attention to that stuff. But
Yeah, I didn't
I thought
either.
that was
That's-
interesting, but again, it's just more rewards for doing the dungeons, and for a faster way to gear up.
At the end of the day, there's still only 8 dungeons, and I say only just because there has been 8 dungeons the whole damn time, and the same bosses. So great that there's another way to what? So they bridged a gap somewhere, right, for someone. But who really gives a shit? Like
Yeah.
this again, like we talked about before. This is a band-aid for them to bridge between the lack of content
Yeah.
between now and 9.1, and it sucks.
Yeah.
And it's going to be sad to see the game partially, you know what I mean, kind of die off until that content comes out. So
Yeah,
shame on them.
Yeah, shame on you, Blizzard. All right, well, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. We're not going to talk about anything after I stop recording. Hand over heart to that, because I'm just going to log off when I'm done, and screw you guys. But
Dang.
we basically, I guess, said 9.
We redesigned dungeons.
Yeah.
We redesigned dungeons, everything.
We bitched
Yeah.
about loot. We bitched about the current dungeon shit, and
We fixed the dungeons.
Yeah, we came up with some really cool concepts. So if you enjoy that, you can check us out at facebook.com/server restartin, or send us a tweet at server_restart.
If you have any ideas of what you want us to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, we'll take prompts. I mean, whatever. I mean, we just talk about things that impact us and what we think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just like, we're by no means game developers to any degree.
Or
and
stellar
Sounds like we could be,
players.
though.
We could be. I mean, it's one thing to have ideas; it's another thing to implement it.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
I
Oh,
do
no,
not-
no. I don't have to implement shit. I just design it. That's all.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks everybody for listening, and we will catch you next week. Bye.
Bye.
Right.